Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Ashutosh Garg, who's a seasoned corporate professional with 25 years of experience, including 17 years at ITC Limited. Well, I also have a history with ITC and 8 years in the aerospace industry. He founded Guardian Pharmacy, which he's going to tell us a lot about, India's second largest pharmacy chain, and introduced GNC as a nutraceutical partner in India. As a certified executive coach, he mentors several CEOs in India. He has served as a director of the Gavi Vaccine Alliance and chairman of Bitstorm, a startup incubator at IIM Rohtak. Recognized as a global leader for tomorrow by the World Economic Forum, he is an active member of the Young Presidents Organization and the Indus Entrepreneurs Die. Now, hold your breath. He has authored 6 best selling books. My God. And contributes regularly to various online publications. Welcome, Ashutosh. I already feel very dwarfed. With 6 books under your belt and so much, how do you manage all of this? And could you share with us your journey as a professional to becoming a successful entrepreneur?
Thank you, Mahua, very much for inviting me on your very, very popular and well received show. Um, and thank you for the very kind introduction. Let me start with your first question, which is my own journey. So I was 1979 batch from Jamnalal Bajaj, 17 years with ITC. When I was transferred by ITC to Singapore, I spent 7 years there building a big international presence for ITC. Then I quit the corporate world, moved into aerospace, then became an entrepreneur, founded Guardian Pharmacy, which you already mentioned. And, I became an entrepreneur when I was 46. So people said it was too late in life. I'm now 67. So, life has a way of giving you lots of opportunities. And I've been the first person to take all opportunities I've got with grateful hands. I'm also an author, and I've been fortunate enough to serve on some amazing boards. But one in a very interesting board that I served on was the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. And vaccine became very critical during the pandemic. So I was regularly on the CNN News 18 show almost every third, fourth day, pontificating on vaccines and something silly like that. So that's my quick background.
What inspired you to find Guardian Pharmacy? And tell me a little about the challenges that you faced in growing it to becoming the second largest pharmacy chain in India. I mean, this is no small feat. How did you do that,
Thank
Ashutosh?
you. Thank you, Momo. That's an interesting question you've asked me. So, let me give you an anecdote. 2003, I was in aerospace and I was traveling 22 days a month around the world. And when I was flying, I remember this one trip, I was in Singapore, then I was in Taiwan, I was in Hong Kong, and after 5, 6 other cities, I was in Seoul. And this was in 2003. I was lying in my bed at 6 o'clock in the morning looking at the ceiling, and I couldn't remember which country I was in. I called my wife and I said, time to leave because now this is getting too stressful. So I quit, had no idea what I'm going to do, came back, and as I started wrote in my first book on the 1st of April 2003, I realized I joined the ranks of the educated unemployed in India. After that, we looked at various options. I said, let me do this, let me do that. God had been kind. I'd been able to earn reasonable amounts of money as an expatriate around the world. And that's when I started to say that a pharmacy is something which is not something which is not something that is not known by Indians. I mean, there are 800,000 neighborhood chemists and druggists in every city, every village of India. But I said, this is the time to organize this. And that is when I opened my first store. I remember my assistant who moved with me from Hughes actually called my wife and said, Viraji, I don't know what has happened to Ashutosh, to Mr. Garg. How is he going to feed so many people by selling one strip of croissant for 10 rupees? And that's how it started. It was a whole series of instances that took place when I would go and meet some of my MBA batchmates and say, will you fund me? And they would not meet me. Then they started saying, how soon can you become 500 stores? So it was a phenomenal opportunity, great teams, great opportunities at that time. India was beginning to open up, and one thing led to the other, and that's how Guardian became one of the biggest in the country.
My God, I mean, I'm absolutely short of words, which I rarely am. But you have to tell me a little bit about what you mean by organized, chemists and pharmaceutical business.
So if you look at the chemists and druggists, they're basically mom and pop stores in the entire country. The concept of organized retail pharmacy chains really came in first with Apollo and then Guardian. They both probably brought this in because what was necessary was from a retail consumer's perspective to be able to go inside a naked mission shop. Because if you were to picture yourself at one of the mom and pop stores, what is your normal experience? Come hail, sunshine, you stand outside at the counter, you ask for a bottle of glycodin, and you get a dirty bottle. He takes a dirty cloth, cleans it, puts it into a newspaper envelope in which he blows to open the envelope. Everything that he does or the chemist does is not something which is really hygienic. And we said, let's start to make a change. The second thing was that we said that 30% of the medicines then sold in India were either fake or underpowered. And we said, therefore, let us bring in 100% reliability, which we built into the logo of the company. And that is how the whole process started. And then one thing led to the other.
Congratulations, Ashutosh, because I think this is such a need, especially with so many people really not knowing when they buy their medications on the medicines that are actually not allowed to be sold anymore. They are sold in a lot of these unorganized, stores. So congratulations on that. And India is definitely battling with so many diseases, and we definitely need more pharmacies like yours. So now you need to tell me a little bit about the writing part. I mean, you've written several, okay, for my listeners, not one, several best selling books. So could you just tell us a little bit about the writing process and where do you draw this inspiration from? I mean, you've traveled all over the world, you've gone ahead and, built this absolutely mega pharmacy business. And then on top of that, you're an author. So, I mean, sometimes when I complain about writing, books and writing columns and doing a podcast, I'm definitely very ashamed right now. You'll have to tell me, how do you do that?
So, Mawa, I've always written from the time I was a child. I've written, and I used to write letters to the editor. And I always remember I interviewed on my podcast Jag Suraya, and you're too young, but you may remember there used to be a magazine called Junior Statesman.
Oh, yes, I love Jaksuraya.
So Junior Statesman, and I wrote a letter to him, and I remember getting the first prize, and it was 100 rupees. And 100 rupees in I remember in the early 80s or late 70s was a very large sum of money. So I used to write a lot. Then I started writing columns once I started working. I had a column in Economic Times. I had a fortnightly column in Business India on international marketing, but I hadn't written a book. When I started Guardian Pharmacy, I was speaking at different parts of the world all over, and people would ask me lots of questions. And someone said, why don't you write a book? So I kept toying with the idea, and my wife was going off to Thailand for a program, and she was away for about a week or 10 days. And I said, listen, when you're away, I'm going to write a book. So she said, okay, tell me another one. By the time she came back, I had written 30,000 words. And then that was my first book, The Buck Stops Here, which really went into almost 120,000 words. And once I'd written my first book, then somehow the whole fear of writing went away from me. And I've got not six, but book that we're going to talk about is my ninth book. And it's just something that I keep doing and enjoy writing. So I've always said that writing is something which everyone must do. And you have such an amazing track record of everything that you have done. Writing has to be done because you want to leave a legacy, because you want to leave your thoughts, and not because you want to say, I want to make money out of it. Once you take that as your paradigm, then you will be able to write. So, my new book has come out, which we're going to talk about, and I'm working on my next one.
You've said something that has really touched my heart, that, you don't write for money ever. You
Yeah.
write because you want to leave your thoughts behind, and you hope that you touch those words touch another person,
Mm.
especially your reader. So let's just
Correct.
talk a little bit about your book, The Seven Chakras of Management, which applies principles from the Indian scriptures, which I mean, I also had done another podcast, and I really believe that the more I am growing older, the Indian scriptures just does really come into play when you are challenged with a situation. But we've not had any book really talking a lot about it, to business management. So can you just tell us a little bit about this, and for you to come up with this entire concept, which I think everybody needs to know, that there are gems in our Indian scriptures. So tell me a
Absolutely.
little bit, Ashutosh, about this.
Thank you for asking me this question, Noah. When the pandemic started in 2020, someone sent me a link from the Harvard Divinity School to say there was an online program on Hinduism. And I was always wanting to explore, and I guess it's also a stage of life that one is at, where someone says, okay, let me understand my own roots. So when I went to register for that one program, I realized it's an 8-month, 7-module program on the 7 major religions of the world. And these are Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, and Buddhism. So I did this 8-month program. I passed an exam. I was able to say that I passed all of them with flying colors. And 4 of these 7 religions come from India, which is why they are referred to as Indic, coming out of India. And, your viewers and listeners must appreciate that India is really the treasure trove of knowledge, is the reservoir of knowledge. And it is written in over thousands of years, that everything that we have. So I said, let me start to read now. I can't say that I'm an expert in any of these things, but I did read extensively extracts. I don't understand Sanskrit, but I did read in English. So I drew upon the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Gita, and then I also looked at Chanakya. And Chanakya is because I'm a great follower of Chanakya, Niti Shastra and Arth Shastra. And I said, let us start to draw lessons from this particular, all our scriptures. And then I said, let us relate these to the human body. Now, you will know that in the human body, there are 7 chakras, you know,
Yes.
the head, the forehead, the neck, the heart, and, the 7 of them. And these are really the nerve points in our bodies. So I said, let me relate these to 7 similar nodes in a corporate world, and let me start to address interesting challenges that each one of us as individuals face. So I'll give you an interesting example. Anger management is something that a lot of us talk about. And, when you're younger, you tend to get angry more often. When you get to my age, you appreciate there is no need to get angry because the only one who's getting impacted is you and me, it's yourself only. So I said, let's look at where in our scriptures there's anger. And there are 2 very interesting stories. In the Ramayana, when Lord Ram was standing uh, at the shores of India to cross over, he had asked his Vanar Sena to build a bridge. And every time they would put the stone, it would sink in the water. 3 days this carried on, and then he got angry and he told Lakshman, bring my bow and arrow and bring my fire arrow, and I'm going to dry up the ocean. The moment he said that, Varun Devta was there at his feet and said, no, please don't do that. Ask your people to write your name on every stone and it'll float. Right? And so, now you suddenly realize that there's nothing wrong with anger management as long as you can manage it. Another one from the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna had given a boon to his Bua that he would not, his Bua had a child who was born with multiple hands and feet. And the moment he picked up the child, that child got cured. So when the curse was that whoever cures the child will also be the destroyer of the child. And the Buddha said, okay, since there's this curse, Krishna, you have to tell me that you will not do anything. So he said, I can't change what is written, but I guarantee, I promise you, I will allow him to abuse me 100 times or curse me 100 times. By the time, and then the boy was, knew that is happening, and they say, and the Ramayana, the Mahabharata says that as in the court where Draupadi was being, उनका चीरहरण हो रहा था, the person was, continuously abusing, and they say that Krishna was counting, and he says 98, 99. The moment he said 100, his Sudarshan chakra came out on his finger, and he just threw it and knocked off the head. Now, these are very interesting examples that we need to be able to learn from to say there's nothing wrong with anger, right? But that's all that I've been trying to draw upon to say that there are so many different ways in which we can identify and associate our scriptures with our daily working, whether it's in the corporate world or at any point, any place of work that we are in.
Absolutely. Yes. I completely believe that. And I think this is a great, great conversation, Ashutosh. I have to say that for our listeners, because, a lot of podcast consumption is done by a lot of youngsters.
Mm.
And they need to understand that how much one can learn with our old scriptures.
Correct.
So what was the inspiration for you to, see, it doesn't come very naturally for all of us right in our younger days. Was there any point in your life that you felt that you needed to go back to our scriptures and for you to put that together in a management book?
I may not agree with you that when you're younger, you don't know, because all of us as parents
Yeah.
do keep introducing our scriptures to our children in our own
Yes.
way.
Yes. But we don't take them seriously, Ashutosh.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We don't. So, when I was much younger, my mother would teach me all this. My father was a very highly decorated army brigadier. Um, my grandparents would keep telling me, and I'm sure, I have a granddaughter. So we keep talking about what is happening in scriptures to our little granddaughter, what we were taught. It's only when you start to understand life, understand the world, understand how you have been weather beaten in your life over and over again, and how there are some crutches that have managed to pull you out. Example, when I was 6 years old going to the hostel, my mother gave me a Hanuman Chalisa. Right now, Hanuman Chalisa is something that I recite many, many times, but that same Hanuman Chalisa has been in my travel bag for the last 62 years. And it still stays with me and it still goes. So it reminds me of my mother, but more importantly, it's a crutch that I have. So if I'm in a plane which is going through turbulence, I will recite the Hanuman Chalisa to myself, and suddenly I will realize that hey, this is something that I can um, close my eyes, think about something, and I just assume that the challenges that I'm faced will go away. So our scriptures are full of these examples, and not at all suggesting that everyone picks up a scripture and start reading, but there is so much being written in little bits, bite-sized knowledge is coming out from all over, and I've tried to cover a lot of it in my book. It's important for us to understand our roots. It's important for us to understand who we are, what is the kind of a legacy that we are following in. And when people say that there's nothing available, there's no record of history, and I've often asked people that the Arthashastra and the Niti Shastra written by Chanakya were written in 3rd century BC. But it's not 3rd century BC. If it could be so evolved in the 3rd century BC, can you imagine how further back our civilization must have gone for someone to write such a treatise 2500 years ago, which is still as relevant today. So I would just urge everyone to have a look at what is written, to start to understand and appreciate.
Amazing. So, how do you decide, which elements of the ancient scriptures, to integrate into contemporary management practices? Having been with ITC in the past, and then, into the aerospace business, and then, of course, running your own pharmaceutical business, you have to tell me a little bit about this.
Certainly. So, if you look at some of the chakras, let's take one chakra, which is the Muladhara chakra or the root chakra.
Yeah.
That's all about laying the foundation and creating stability, which is crucial for any organization. There's the heart chakra or the Anahata chakra, which emphasizes emotional intelligence and accountability, vital for effective leadership. There is the throat chakra, which can be effectively applied in modern organizational setting. The throat chakra, which is here, is associated with communication and authenticity. Now, I'm using terms in which each one of our viewers and listeners can probably identify with. Whether you look at laying the foundation in an organization, whether you're talking of stability in an organization, whether you're talking about emotional intelligence, accountability, whether you're talking about what I just mentioned, communication, authenticity. Each one of these things are part of our lives. And all that I have attempted to do is to relate each of these chakras with a life that I have lived in the corporate world and as an entrepreneur, and said, how can I draw lessons from each of these? And that's all that I have attempted to put in my book.
So, during your research, I'm sure there was quite a few surprising or unexpected things that you found, right? That is
Yeah.
related to management practices. Would you like to share something that really took you by surprise while you were doing your research for your
I
book?
would say that there were many things that I did look at, but what was the most surprising when I was doing research for the book was the very deep relevance of Dharma, which is really duty and righteousness. And we talk of Lord Krishna talks of Dharma in the Gita. We also talk of karma in the Gita, right? Now, whether it's your dharma, which is duty and righteousness, to delivering what work you want, you are asked to do or you have committed to do, or karma, which is not really trying to hope that I'll get something out of this discussion. It is what was amazing was that these ancient teachings on dharma directly applied to modern ethical dilemmas that each one of us faces on a daily basis. It was also what was also amazing was that when you look at any of the Indic scriptures, there is almost a universal application across scriptures, whether it is Hindu scriptures, Buddhist scriptures, Jain scriptures, or Sikh scriptures. There is tremendous depth of insight, which is depth and relevance of the ancient philosophies in addressing contemporary business issues like leadership integrity, team dynamics, and strategic thinking. Then there is the whole question that I was fascinated with was the entire personal aspect that we covered on how to transform ourselves personally. And finally, there was this whole question of how receptive and the audience is, when, in spite of the fact that we are such a diverse, culturally diverse country. So, what is very important is to understand whenever, as I was researching this book, I started to realize that it's nothing like, oh, this is 3,000 years old. What was written then is as relevant today as it was then, and hopefully it will be as relevant 3, 4, 5,000 years from.
So, of course, it will be forever and ever. I mean, I completely agree with you on this, and it's like I was saying right in the start that I woke up every day in the morning listening to my grandmother chant the Krishna, the 100 names of Krishna, and I took it for granted because I don't think I delved really deep into it. It's only when you grow older and you're faced with challenging situations you go back to the entire futility, the idea of illusion, the idea of responsibility. So let's just talk a little bit about the Indian scriptures and what does it mean to live an ethical life. So one, for example, for me, I find this entire balance between personal duty and societal responsibility quite confusing. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, let me start by giving you an interesting story. I was 22 years old when I was transferred by ITC to Aurangabad to the hotel there. And I was, working on something, and a supplier walked in because there would have been an order and said to me, "What should I keep for you?" Now I couldn't understand what that meant, and then when it dawned on me, I said, "Completely unacceptable." And then I started to think a little more, and I said that if someone sends me a box of 12 mangoes, I may accept it. But if someone sends me 12 bottles of alcohol or 12 lakh rupees, I'll say, I'm trying to bribe me. So, therefore, ethics is something which is very personal, which is very, what I refer to as threshold of conscience that each one of us has. And what is described in our scriptures is, once again, I'm going to use the term dharma, adhering to the principles of dharma, which signifies righteous duty and moral responsibility. Uh, our scriptures also emphasize the importance of integrity, honesty, and compassion in both our professional and personal lives, and balancing our personal duties and societal responsibilities require a very holistic understanding of our own role and purpose. So I think what is most important in our scriptures is that we are the center of our own lives. That phrase of aham brahman, which is I am at the center. I am brahman, which is I am the universe. That is so central to each one of us in our lives. So the Bhagavad Gita also talks a little bit about selfless action and the pursuit of a higher purpose beyond personal gain. And once, if you're able to align our personal goals with the greater good of individuals for achieving a really harmonious kind of a life, what more could we do to achieve a fulfilling and ethical life?
My God, I mean, like I said, I'm stupefied when you speak about this because it's so true. But I'd like you to go back into this entire concept that you spoke about alcohol and mangoes. So explain a little bit more.
So, what I'm trying to say is that, we tend to become judgmental,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we love to say, oh, so and so person is corrupt. Now, he or she may be corrupt in our eyes because our own understanding
Of
of
the
what
world.
is not ethical
Yeah.
may be different from the other person. So I may accept a box of sweets or a diary on New Year, or maybe something really small, and someone else may say, okay, I'm going to accept something much bigger. Now, to me, that is not right. But technically, neither is taking a box of sweets nor is taking a diary right, because there is some kind of a quid pro quo that is associated with whether it's a diary or a calendar. So, all that I'm saying is we need to be able to lead our lives based on our own ethics and not judge anyone else. And I'd love to give you an example, a story that my father always told me was that every morning when you're standing in front of the mirror shaving, if you can look at yourself in your eyes and say to yourself, yesterday, I did not knowingly harm anybody. I did not knowingly do anything wrong. That is the only justification you need to give to yourself and to society. So that is what I mean when I say that whatever judgments we tend to keep on delivering in our minds or to our friends about a third person are wrong. We need to be able to judge only ourselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, you know what? I will also ask you, how do businesses very effectively balance all the seven chakras? That's not, it seems very utopian, for optimal growth and success. As you suggested in the book, it seems, like I said, very utopian. So, I think, we'd really like you to share a little bit about your thoughts on that.
So, the question is not about balancing chakras. It's basically understanding what are the different chakras that are there. We have structures in the company, starting with the CEO or the leader of the company or the leader of the business, down to the large number of people who are actually doing a lot of the work. So I think what is important is for each one of us to appreciate and understand that whatever an organization is doing, it is important to ensure that there is a semblance of sanity across the entire organization, across the aspirations of every single individual, and it must be embodied by a leader who's able to say that I am transparent in my communication with the team. I'm going to encourage open dialogue. I'm going to actively listen to feedback. And not only that, but I will make sure that there is a culture of fostering collaboration. I'm using modern terms, but these are all things that are written repeatedly in all our scriptures. Because at the end of the day, we are all community animals, if I can use the term. We love to live with people. We are part of societies, and therefore, all our chakras relate within ourselves, with each other, within the community that we live in, within the organizations that we work in. And therefore, that balance is something which we all have to work out in our own ways to make ourselves happier.
Who do you see as the primary audience for your book, and what is it that you hope that they would take away, from the book?
So I would say primary audience of my book really is uh, business leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, any human being, but people who are wanting to seek a deeper understanding of leadership through the lens of ancient wisdom, blended with modern management practices. What I've managed to do, given the fact that I've been fortunate to have been in the corporate world as an entrepreneur for 4 decades, is that I've been able to relate my own personal experiences with whatever I have learned. Uh, my book also hopes to be able to provide a unique perspective on leadership that combines spiritual insights with practical management strategies. We can talk about who the target audience is, but there could be aspiring or established managers, business leaders. What could be some of the core lessons? I hope readers will appreciate the integration of traditional spiritual insights and contemporary management practices so that they can lead their own lives and do their work more effectively. And I sincerely hope that I will be able to see a much, much more holistic development amongst people who read my book in their own lives.
And the last question that Ashutosh, I would really like you to answer is that you're a certified executive coach, right? And you must be coming across a whole lot of CEOs. What is it that you think are the common challenges that CEOs face in India, and how do you guide them forward? I mean, we know we're talking today a lot about mental health, and mental health is like screaming at us from all places, every corner. For the first time, I think we have all coming to understand terms that was not at all recognized also in the earlier days when we were pursuing our days of working. So what do you think is those the most primary challenges that CEOs face?
Well, I think let me not talk about the business related challenges, etc. I Let me focus more on the challenges CEOs face as human beings. You know, there is a lot of stress that we all go through, whether it's related to relationships, whether it's related to families, whether it's, of course, related to work. And one of the things that I have always attempted to do with all my team members, all my coaches, is to help them appreciate and understand that there is a life beyond what is your office work. We, and I've said this for many, many, many years, that we in India do not understand the meaning of the word leisure. We are constantly on the treadmill, running faster and faster, and I don't understand why. So I do a lot of work with coaches, and this work could be when people are transitioning from a CX job to a CEO job, when people are acquiring companies, when people are merging with companies, and so on and so forth. But I think the ones that I really and truly enjoy is when we start getting under the so-called skin of each other and say, what is it that is bothering you, and how can you lead a much, much more meaningful life for yourself and for your family? I think that is where I'm able to add value to all my coaches.
And I think that's really the need of the hour, because we do hear of so many marriages that are falling apart because of the time that a lot of people in very senior positions cannot give into their families. And yes, definitely, I think everybody needs to pick up your book. I would suggest that even students need to pick up and understand, all these principles of our scriptures that will only add to their life. Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for being on today's podcast. And it has been an honor to have you here with me today.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mahua,
once
for
again.
inviting me. It's been a pleasure speaking.